and Kosovo. And it's hard to imagine 20 years ago, someone, another teacher brainstormed this idea over breakfast, kind of all come together so quickly. We're very pleased to have all of you here. It's our pleasure today to have two guest speakers who are going to represent two different viewpoints. And I don't mean to say that they're absolutely at odds with each other, but each of the speakers today represent one of the ethnic groups that is heavily involved with both the Kosovo and Yugoslavia situation. But I'd like to emphasize that neither of the speakers represents any official organization. It's purely a personal view from two people who have been involved and are extremely concerned about the events that are going on. I'm going to introduce both speakers. I'm not sure which one decided to speak first, but they're going to both speak for about 15 minutes, then take your questions and your comments. We have representing the Serbian interview, Zoran Bendorovic, far right here. Zoran, I understand, grew up in Serbia, but has been in the United States most of the time since the 70s. Is that correct? Although he's visited, he's had return visits. And next, to my immediate right, is Dr. Jelai. He's Albanian, ethnically, and he is a teacher of history, world history, and other histories at Hamtramck High School, which, for your information, I understand they have quite an Albanian population in the Hamtramck area. I think some of the students are also Albanian. I don't know who would like to. Okay.
Thank you, and good morning to all of you. It is a great pleasure for me to be here with you today, and I view this as an honor and at the same time a deep responsibility. First of all, may God bless the United States for giving us this opportunity to be together with my friend. I just met him, Zoran from Ann Arbor, and with all of you, if not close physically, spiritually, in these days of trouble and misery and the threshold of 21st century. You and I are making history. Mark my words. What we think and what we act after this day or during these days will have a lasting impact on whatever comes next 100 or maybe thousands of years. Whatever I say today, it is my personal view, it is my personal belief, and I can assure you, I will tell you absolute truth as I see it. I teach world history and English as a second language. I was educated in ex-Yugoslavia, and I earned my PhD in anthropology in the University of Rome, and then I came back to the United States, and I am perfect in EDD program for vocational doctor at Wayne State in Berkeley and staff development. Let me start by saying that your school district must be honored and commended for doing this. It is a plus, and it is absolutely necessary that you, even though if you have no interest whatsoever in what's going on in Kosovo or ex-Yugoslavia or in the Balkans, that you as a citizen be fully and broadly informed about the world issues. So thanks to, from the superintendent down to every one of you, and thanks to your parents who are also interested in you being a world citizen, not only a US citizen. I know that if I take the time for 15 minutes to wrap up the 15,000 of years that we can talk about the Balkan Peninsula, the Balkan people, it will be a waste of time. I will confuse you. If I want to tell you exactly what I feel in my heart and what is in my mind, also I will take eternity and I will confuse you. So what I decided to do is go off of my scripts and talk to you from the heart. Number one, this is a human tragedy. Let nobody convince you that these are times of playing politics. We have seen it through the films, we have lived it through our readings, and we have lived it through the witnesses. It has been repeated now. The Holocaust, even though I honor and venerate those who are under the umbrella of Holocaust, the Holocaust, my friends, is going on right now. I care for those people that are Serbian or that are Albanian. They equally have a right to their long and happy and prosperous life as you and I. I feel ashamed of myself when I think back 20 years when, and this is most honest, when I was apart, I proudly served the Yugoslav Navy for 24 long months, when I was led to believe that Yugoslavia is and must be and will forever be a state of freedom and brotherhood. It was not. I was lied to. I crisscrossed the country from Slovenia to Macedonia, and I know that you know the geography. Your teachers have done a good job. I have seen the people before, and I have seen the people during, and I have seen the people after. The evil is at work, no matter from which side it comes. But this time, it comes from the top. It comes from the government that has promised to itself to stay in power no matter what it takes. Does it take its citizens? Does it take its infrastructure? Does it take its young people? Does it take its future? Milosevic and Arkan wants to stay in power, like Hitler wanted to stay and conquer Europe once and for all. There are no hidden agendas, my friends. This is a Hitler revisited. Yugoslav people are suffering as well and as much as the Albanians, but not in the large numbers. They are suppressed, oppressed, they are jailed, they are beaten, and they are being denied the basic human rights in their own country under the terms or umbrella of preserving, quote unquote, a traitor state named Serbia. An illusion. You and I must realize that we cannot and should not live in illusions. We in the West, or we the free people, see the reality. We can read, we can feel, we can talk, we can express. There is no way that I can convince you today. There's no way in the world that I can convince you today that if I go out there in any state of the United States and uproot 200, 300, 400, 600, 800,000 people out of their homes, that I am doing something for my country. And those people are the citizens. Milosevic and his forces, my friends, are not invading a foreign country. They are massacring their own children. The Albanians, the Croats, the Muslims, the Turks, the Slovenes were and are still, in their minds, the citizens of Yugoslavia. They have the passports, they have the birth certificates, they have their deeds to their homes, they have the high school diplomas. No way, no one in the right mind can believe that this is for the good of Serbia. This is only for and is driven by the desire to stay in power and to oppress the oppressed. I have heard a lot of viewpoints, and I'm very happy. I heard a very good one today. I want to mention it. The father from the Orthodox Church in Detroit. I commend him, and I told him, Father, you and I must stand up, and even if it means that the bullets will fly toward us, we have to tell the truth. Father, the truth is not half, but the whole truth, and only truth is that in Kosovo today, this genocide is taking place. We, those who believe in God, and those who believe in freedom, and those who believe in the future, we must stand up and say, enough is enough, stop. You can have 100 perspectives, 1,000 perspectives. You can solve a problem in any way you want to, in the geometry or algebra or trigonometry or calculus. These are not academics. These are lives of human beings in question every single second that we talk here. There are people who believe in one way or another what Albanians believe, and what I am one of them. I am Albanian, but I am a proud United States citizen also, and this is my country. I and 99% of my colleagues and Albanians that are American Albanians stand by the United States government and stand by the United States soldiers who are today imprisoned in Belgrade. I see those three faces every single morning, and I see my own child. Not, not to be emotional, but to be truthful. We, the United States, in my view, are the only hope for your future. The only way to build a future is to create one now. And in my view, and you tell me if it's possible differently, Yugoslavia or Serbia or whoever is in charge is destroying the future. Every possible mean of oppression and suppression is being used. This is not a copied or forged copy from a newspaper or a magazine. Actual action, actual going on, actual war. There is no way that you cannot understand that 700,000 people are today homeless. And if it was not for the United States and its leadership, then those 700,000 people today would be all history, dead. Even Serbians, including, I heard today, the first time, the statistics of about 70,000. They have their own right to live in their own state. The Albanian view or perspective, there is no way that the world will have peace or that the Balkans will have peace in any way for any time until and unless the 2 million Albanians are given the rights that they have God given. The right to live, the right to go to school, the right to learn their language, the right to worship their God, the right to express themselves. The Balkans, and you hear, the Balkans are not important to the United States. The Balkans are important to the United States. In one way at least, moral. I heard this morning one friend mine told me, why should I get involved? Because Balkans are so far and never been there and I never will go there. And my daughter is here, a senior, so why should I tell her to get involved? What I responded to him was, the United States is great because of its ideals and standards and moral values, not because of its dollar. The Romans perished, the Egyptians perished, the Russians down the drain, the Germans down, and the only hope for the future is not the power of economics, but the power of moral fabric. So the United States and the NATO has a business to get involved, cannot stand by seeing people slaughtered, people burned alive, people killed, people uprooted from their homes, and say that's okay, it is not part of us. Yes, it is, because you, as a young generation, you will bring America even greater in the 21st century and beyond because of what you stand for, and you stand for the right of every person to be free and the right of every person to live the life that was given by God the way he or she wants it to be lived. My last point, because I know we are short on time. Yugoslav government has destroyed itself. Don't be misled. The Serbian people, majority, are not responsible. The responsibility goes only and directly to those who are directing the military and the paramilitary forces in Kosovo, or who directed them in Slovenia, who directed them in Croatia, who directed in Bosnia and Herzegovina, who are thinking to direct them in Montenegro, and who are doing it right now in Kosovo. They are fully responsible, and they bear responsibility for the future generations. Milosevic, in my view, in Albanian view, is nothing else and nothing more but a war criminal. I have no fear, and you should have no fear if I did something like that or similar to it to declare me a war criminal and I should be put to death. Milosevic has his hands as deep as it can, blooded several times with several different ethnic groups. Therefore, as long as Milosevic is in power, as long as Arkan Rajnatovic, one of the most notorious European criminals, who is a member of the Serbian parliament, shame, until those people are in charge of the Serbian affairs, Serbia will continue to damage itself, and the Albanians will never accept. We Albanians are for peace. I brought summary of the Rambouillet Accord. We accepted with the help of other nations. We said, yes, we will live with Serbia, even though you know that there was never business living Albanians together with the Serbs. Never a business Croats living with the Serbs. They were put together. They were carved together. You know the history. They were created, they were made to, they were donated to, they were handed to. There was never a voted or a natural immersion of these peoples. The Albanians want peace. The Albanians want peace, but they want a just peace. For how long can you live a slave? All we have to do is look back in our own history. For how long did we close our eyes and say it is okay to own slaves? It is okay to own slaves in Kosovo. No. Therefore, Albanians are in the United States for peace, and they are for life, and they are for future. But there must be a justice. We will not accept to be sold out anymore. Even if it means that all of us will be gone, at least we will be gone as people who fought for their freedom. I thank you for your attention, and I hope that you will get from this at least one thing: respect the others if you want to be respected from them. May God bless you, and may God bless the United States.
Good morning. My name is Zoran Mandarovich. Thank you for being here, and I'm very grateful to all the organizers of this meeting, because I think, as Dr. Jelai said, it's a historic moment for all of us. And I would also like to thank Dr. Jelai for his statements, with which I mostly agree, which kind of um, undermines this whole idea of point-counterpoint. And as Dr. Jelak did not represent any official point of view, I do not represent any official point of view either. I'm an ethnic Serb. I've lived in this country for a very long time, and I left the country. I left Serbia or Yugoslavia in 1972 as a result of my political involvement in the student movement. If you as young people will understand that. I was around 17 or 18 when I became involved in the student movement, and it was basically a movement that I'm tempted to say tried to overthrow the government, but really that's almost the case. And it was a socialist movement against a government that we perceived as unjust, totalitarian, and opposed to human freedom. And as a result of that, I left the country. And like Dr. Gel, I have no sympathy or love for the current Serbian government. As far as I'm concerned, it's the same government that expelled me in '72 and forced me into political exile, which in my opinion will probably never end, because what we're facing here is a horrible tragedy and a profound crisis in Serbia, which will not end soon. There are many points that I would like to make, and as a sequel to this kind of autobiographical historical point, I'd like to say that Milosevic is not a new phenomenon. Well, I'm sorry, I have to backtrack a little. I have to preface everything with a comment on an article in the X-Files, and which says that, I quote, both Serbians and Albanians trace the history of hate to the Battle of Kosovo in 1389. Just it's very important to point out the facts, because when facts are distorted, this gives rise to mythologies, and mythologies can cause war. In 1389, there was a coalition led by the Serbs that fought the Turks, and the coalition included Albanians too. So this is a joint effort, and it's also part, it's not just part of Serbia's glorious history, but it's also a part of Albania's glorious history in their efforts to fight the Ottoman Empire. And these efforts didn't end in 1389. They continued. So just to sum it up, in many respects, Serbia and Albania have common interests, they have a common history, and they have many points of contact and solidarity that unfortunately the media have chosen to distort, ignore for their own pathological reasons. I am definitely in favor, as Dr. Ginella is, of freedom and justice for everyone. But I am against war. And I'm opposed to the bombing because I think that it exacerbates a situation that is very unfortunate. The NATO campaign, despite all its professed aim, first of all, has not done a thing to undermine Milosevic. In fact, it has incredibly strengthened his political base and his political power. For the last 10 years, at least, or more, or there's probably an even longer continuity, there has been a democratic opposition in Serbia fighting against Milosevic. Well, the American-led NATO intervention got rid of it. The first bomb that fell on the former Yugoslavia was the death knell of the opposition movement. One can go on and on. In addition to demolishing any chance of democratic opposition in Serbia, the bombing also has done or is doing untold incredible damage to everybody in the former Yugoslavia, women, children. I'm not going to tell. This is not a Serbian, Albanian, Croatian question. It's a human question. Human beings are being destroyed because of a completely misguided policy, which I'm at pains to explain. And I think it would be up to you to ask the questions. Why is this going on? Militarily, the NATO operation is a farce. It has failed all of its military objectives. The main objectives were to destroy the Yugoslav Serbian military machine. It hasn't done it. They are raining uranium-depleted bombs on Kosovo. They are also exposing the territory of Kosovo to cluster bombs. There are cluster bombs all over the place. Women, children, Serbian, Albanian are dying. The cluster bombs the purpose of the cluster bombs is to destroy Serbian tanks, Serbian infantry. As far as I know, not one tank has been destroyed. I'd like to conclude by saying that as probably you are, I'm completely baffled by this action. And I've been looking for answers for days and weeks, reading books, histories, and I cannot find a rational answer. And so I'm tempted to conclude that there is no rational answer. In a recent article by a Croatian journalist whose name is Boris Budin, the title of the article is Saving Private Pavel. He said, well, we have new graffiti in Belgrade. And the graffiti basically say, Slobo, you Clinton. Now, when I first saw that, I was kind of flabbergasted. But then Mr. Budin does explain that there are certain similarities. And I don't want to scandalize you, but we have to ask ourselves, when we think of our government doing things that are good or bad, or that they are empowered to do, what laws are they breaking? Is this president breaking any laws? Has he broken any laws? Well, in this particular case, we have a situation where there's an undeclared war, where Congress was totally sidestepped, where, to quote a conservative politician, you have a Marxist Spanish general telling the American commander of NATO forces to start dropping bombs, and the American people and the Congress is not even consulted. Mr. Putin makes an interesting parallel to explain the link between Slobodan Milosevic and Clinton. Well, both Clinton and Milosevic are not really seduced by the idea of following things in a legal democratic framework. We know that the NATO's war against Serbia is a total violation of the US Constitution, US laws, the Charter of the UN, and of NATO itself, which was created as a defensive organization, but is actually acting as an offensive alliance. Milosevic did the same thing in '89 when he decided that the democratic institutions of Kosovo were just too constricting, and he didn't feel like working for them, and he had popular support. So he said, okay, all these institutions, your parliament, everything is gone. So I'd like to end on this note, questioning. And once again, I am baffled, and all I can say is that this NATO action is not accomplishing anything, and that the problem should have been handled differently, and it's really old, and it makes no sense, and the scenario for this horrible film was written decades ago. It was very obvious in the first act of ethnic cleansing in Serbia, in Croatia, and other places, but the US and NATO chose to be passive. And I can go on and on. Wouldn't give time for discussion. I think that we need to ask this question. What are politicians doing? Why are they ignoring the institutions of international law, civil society, and why are they showing their contempt toward their people? And in this particular case, in the US, contempt is shown toward us, because we are not consulted. We have not been consulted. And so I'm just leaving you with all these questions that I'm trying to answer. Thank you very much.
Well, I take questions or comments from the audience, but they have an opportunity to respond. Oh, wait a minute. For a better be very long, but a few questions so everybody can hear it.
First, I noticed that both the speakers have some. Neither one like or support Milosevic, but how can you explain I guess, the ever-increasing support for Milosevic by the Serbs? I mean, aside from the bombing, how is that the escalation of support for Milosevic occurring? Like, what would the rationale of the Serbian people be to explain their support for such a leader that both of you oppose?
Um, it's not to give a simple answer. Because of lack of information, we do hear that a lot of opposition leaders are rallying behind Milosevic, and the only explanation I can give is that the Serbs perceive NATO bombing as an act of war, and they are living it, living through it, experiencing it as an epic struggle to defend their country from the enemy, and this conjures up all kinds of historical and mythological references. But the other part of the answer would be, we don't really know. We also, the opposition may be silenced, but maybe I shouldn't have said that it's completely dead, because it does still exist. There is opposition to Milosevic, but we don't hear that kind of information. We hear certain traces of information. For instance, the fact that the recently sacked by the Prime Minister of Serbia, Vudrašković, openly challenged Milosevic and said, stop lying to your people, stop telling them that we can win this war. We cannot win this war. And he was instantly fired. So that's, to answer the question, opposition still exists. Only silence. Its situation has been made totally precarious by the bombing and much more dangerous, because there are varieties of martial law in Serbia, and you can't say much, you can't do much. Being a visiting journalist is dangerous. One journalist was recently killed by a mysterious gunman. So that's my kind of imperfect partial answer.
Made in China. This is made in America. I think works better. I think just very shortly to your question, sir, is why the Serbians are supporting Milosevic? They have no choice. When you have a gun at your head, then you go and do what the gunner is asking you to do. I think the Serbian people right now are under very heavy pressure, and they cannot, for a conceivable future, rise up, come to the level of 10 years ago to oppose a dictator. A Hitler will not die very easy. Therefore, we will expect more political wrestling around in Serbia and around the world until we have a final 0-0 with Milosevic.
Well, you disagree, agree that what's going on in the region is all region is terribly wrong. But then what are we not involved in, or even involved in what is for the bench? I know there's no simple answer there, but I'd be interested to hear both of your opinions. That's possible to that.
My answer to that your question, thank you for asking, was before that. Even though the United States is far from Balkans and probably never will, I mean, you and I maybe never have a benefit from it. You remember that the United States does not live only for its own interests. The United States it was not founded for its own interests. The United States does not live for its own interests only. And therefore, if you do not want to close your country and die as a selfish country, then you have to open yourself to the world. We are the citizens of the world. Therefore, I don't believe it. I can see it how my government would stand by and do nothing when the need is so great. It's very apparent. Forget the political, forget the geopolitical, forget the economical. forget whatever other reasons you want to, the one reason stands. Do we stand by and see those people slaughtered every day? I think it will be totally un-American. That's my view.
I believe that one should stand by. I just want to go back into history just for a second and say that unfortunately, whatever intervention is happening now is coming too late because the West and the US and the NATO countries had opportunities, had many opportunities to intervene, but for reasons that I don't comprehend, cannot analyze here, they chose not to. We have to realize that the Milosevic regime, we know that it's oppressive, totalitarian, etc., but it didn't fall from the sky. As far as I'm concerned, the Milosevic regime is a logical consequence of Titoism. And like Titoism, it's totalitarian, undemocratic, but we also know that the so-called West, the US, did nothing to undermine Tito. When I was an activist in the, let's call it, anti-Tito movement, I found it very curious that the West was critical of us students, and they called us extremists, Maoists, whatever, lunatics, because we were opposing a recognized socialist government that the West found very convenient. See, the point is, the West is very pragmatic, as politicians are. They like Tito, but they don't like Milosevic, so they chose to intervene now, not for any moral reasons, or because they feel solidarity with the Albanian people. No, they chose to interfere now because it suits their interests. And in 1995, Richard Holbrooke was saying, "Oh, Milosevic is a fine guy. We can do business with him." And that's one of my main point is, that's my main criticism of Clinton and the US government is their solidarity with dictatorships. The US had a chance to destroy Saddam Hussein in 1991. Did they destroy him? Of course not. They had ample chances to undermine Milosevic in 91, in 96, where there were street demonstrations, a whole massive movement against him in the streets. The US chose to support him. And that's something that I really cannot, it's mind-boggling, it's unbelievable, it's really maddening, the fact that this government has this feeling of solidarity with tyrants. That's my answer.
I just want to add one thing on Robert. I think bear in mind, Milosevic is a cancer. All right, is dangerous, is malignant, and United States must stand up to that kind of cancer in the Balkans or in Europe, because if not, as a doctor who does not treat a patient well at the beginning, then you will have to sacrifice that patient for laboratory work. So the United States must stand up, the NATO must stand up, you and I have to stand up, and I can guarantee you the next 10 years you're gonna say, thanks God we did, because we will have a united, free, democratic Europe where you and I can go and live and visit and have fun and enjoy and say, thank you, God, that we have this world free as is. So the cancer must be stopped.
Good afternoon. My name is Mark Joka, and I'll take the American-made microphone. Thank you. I spoke about it earlier, but I was overcome by emotions. I'm Albanian American. I've been here for many, many decades. I heard the speakers try to present the view and what is going on. First of all, I want to clarify one thing immediately. Albanians have no common history with the Serbs. The Serbs are not killing their own citizens. These are Albanian citizens that have been living in Kosovo for thousands and thousands of years. They are like the Red Indians, the original inhabitants. That point first. Cluster bombs, the man who mentioned cluster bombs. I am sorry, sir, but cluster bombs do not rape women and children. Cluster bombs do not expel the elderly, and cluster bombs do not loot homes. Next, don't blame Clinton and don't blame NATO for the genocide that's going on. Clinton is not cleansing and eradicating the Albanian people from Kosovo. It's the Serbian propaganda and the machinery that borrowed $30 billion from the United States. And it must be stopped. And this gentleman says that NATO should not intervene. If NATO and the United States does not intervene, who will intervene? 1 second, because UN, we saw how long it takes. Next question, and I'm sorry to be so upset. There was no justice for Albanians in the past. I got a question for these students who are very smart and full of life and very bright, just like the Albanian students who had been deported and expelled from their homes. Who was the longest held political prisoner in the world in modern times? And the answer is probably going to be Nelson Mandela. Wrong. I'm sorry, but it's wrong. The longest held political prisoner was Albanian. His name was Adem Demaci. And they kept him in jail longer than Nelson Mandela. The Serbian people are partially responsible for the carnage and genocide because they elected the Serbian propaganda and machinery time and again. Their church is partially responsible by going and blessing and encouraging the soldiers. So United States should go. One second. All right. Okay. Well, anyway, thank you very much. And you can make a difference. There's a poster with a PO box. You can help those children. Please help those children. Thank you. God bless you all.
Just a quick response to the previous speaker. People may be free to accuse anyone, but I choose, this is my personal view, I choose not to accuse people. And if someone says the Serbs elected Milosevic, that's nonsense. They elected him. Some Serbs did, but lots of Serbs didn't. That's in a totalitarian country. We know what elections are. There are no free elections in a totalitarian regime, and everybody agrees that Milosevic Serbia is a totalitarian country. As far as the cluster bombs are concerned, there was a comparison saying cluster bombs don't rape. No one ever said that. Cluster bombs do their thing, and people who rape do something different. And but my strongest point is to rebut the misconception that the Serbs and the Albanians have nothing in common and don't have a common history. I'm not going to bore you, but there are libraries and books written by historians who neither Serbian or Albanians. They definitely have a common history, and that's the history of the struggle against the Ottoman Empire. And the Battle of Kosovo in 1389, Albanians played a very significant role. And if you want to deny it, fine, but that's a fact.
So, well, it's too late of politics and pragmatics and whatnot. Why not? It's now out people, but it began and just let us instead of going on it like for God knows how long. Why not put a lot of effort right now. And
I agree. I'm not for war, I'm against war totally, but I would define your idea as a lesser evil. Because what's happening now is, as far as I'm concerned, the absolute evil is the destruction of human life and property to no purpose and no end. And it's not accomplishing anything, no strategic goal, nothing is being accomplished. And a blitzkrieg with ground troops to, as you said, the evil would definitely be, in my opinion, a lesser evil. It should have been done earlier. I've been saying this word. I'm really baffled that the leaders of NATO have, while being completely deaf to their Pentagon and CIA advisors, they supported this fairy tale Mickey Mouse bombing, which is ridiculous. It's like a video game. It leads nowhere. It's just a farce. So that's my answer.
Very quick on that also. The United States government, I believe, is honest at this point. They don't want American blood to be spilled in Kosovo, rightfully so. Your lives are precious, every single one. But at the other side of the spectrum, then, as you said, the evil must be uprooted, and maybe, I hope not, God forgive and forbid. Maybe one day we will have to go there and uproot the evil, or get the cancer out once and for all using the ground troops. Let's pray and hope that those troops are not needed, because as I said, every single life of yours is precious, and we should do everything possible to save it.
I'd like to present an entirely different view, one that is pro-peace. My name is Al Fishman, Nation One Sessions. I'm from Peace Action of Michigan. First of all, to those who have come to this country in the last several years, welcome. But you need to know that a part of the American democratic tradition is to oppose our government when we think it is wrong, and not to accept blindly what our government does. The second thing I want to point out is that my government, your government, does not come to this situation with clean hands. And we, as American citizens, can do more about what our government does than we can about what the Serbian government does, or what the KLA does, or what NATO does. Our government is our responsibility. Number one, there was a recent treaty signed in Europe calling for an international criminal court. The United States refused to sign that treaty. Why? Because we have consistently ignored international law. We did not pay any attention to the World Court ruling on the mining of Nicaragua. We have yet to come to grips with our CIA's intervention and overthrow of democratic governments throughout the world, beginning with Guatemala and with Iran, and our intervention in Nicaragua. We have a bloody history of intervening on behalf of multinational corporations and of interests that are not the same as the interests of the American people. In addition, there was a very popular landmines treaty that was signed, led by a grassroots movement. You all saw this tennis shoe, Jody Williams, I think, on television. She got a Nobel Peace Prize for her effort. The United States has still refused to sign the landmine treaty. We engineered a compromise on the nuclear non-proliferation treaty, and Article 6 of that treaty calls for disarmament of nuclear weapons, which the World Court has declared as illegal and immoral. And yet we not only refuse to disarm, but we are building new nuclear weapons at the Los Alamos National Laboratory. I don't in any way excuse, in any form or manner, either the repression within Serbia or the expulsion of Albanian refugees. But neither bombing nor a land war are going to achieve anything of value. They are only going to destroy more lives and more of our common culture. Therefore, the only path that is open to humanity is to bring both parties together at the table. Rambouillet did not reflect negotiations. Negotiations are where the parties sit together at the table and find out where they can compromise. Rambouillet was an ultimatum. Either you accept this or we bomb, and that encouraged the Serbian opposition. Yes, there is a, I'll just conclude, thank you. Yes, there is, if you want to know why, the student in the back asked why the opposition is supporting Milosevic. Is there anyone in this country, if we were attacked, if we were bombed, would we care whether it was a Republican or a Democrat in the White House? No, we would not. We would rally around our country as we have. The people in Serbia are being bombed. And strangely enough, they do not like being bombed. And therefore, they are rallying around the only figurehead that they have, which is a very significant.
We are beyond our time. Some of you are in your lunch hour. If you'd like to stay, I think our speakers will be motivated.
Thank you for participating.
Please, if you want to help those children who are helpless, there's